Now doesn't that look amazing? Honestly, Dad, it looks pretty scary. What's there to be scared about? It's just a full lunar eclipse. It only happens twice a year. I know, I studied it in class today. It's also called a blood moon, or a wolf moon, and there are a lot of stories about them. And trust me, none of them have a happy ending. Those are only myths and legends, Adrian. Ooh. Mom? Finally, our hot cocoa and s'mores are here. Where's your mother? She's not here? Boo! Got both of you. Yes, sweetheart, you got us. Whoa! You bet I got you. Wow, look at the moon, it's beautiful. How many werewolves and vampires you think are up with us watching it? Mom, really? Werewolves and vampires? You say it like they really exist. It's true, people used to think lunar eclipses were a sign of bad omen. Demons come down to feast, zombies wake up for a treat. How many of them will you greet? Adrian and his father both called out, "Enough of the poems! Jinx! Double jinx! Triple jinx! Knock on wood!" They both laughed out. Oh, stop it. You know you guys love my poems. Now wear this, it's cold. The Leroy family, Kathleen, Douglas, and their 11-year-old son Adrian were all sitting out on their balcony in the chilly weather. It was quite late at night in the small town of Pine Prairies in Louisiana. The sound of the crickets chirping buzzed in the air. The occasional hooting of the owls could be heard from the woods that encompassed the town. The parents had allowed their son to stay up a little late tonight. It wasn't every day that they could enjoy a spectacular total lunar eclipse. At around midnight, the family finally went to bed. However, some hours later, Kathleen and Douglas woke up startled to their son screaming in his room. They rushed to find him crying in his bed, holding his arms and legs, twisting and turning side to side. "Mom, it hurts! It hurts, make it stop!" Adrian said, crying profusely. "Adrian, what happened? Where does it hurt?" Adrian couldn't stop screaming from the agonizing pain he was going through. The parents were worried sick. "Adrian, try to stay calm and tell us what you're feeling and where, so we can help you." Adrian just barely spoke out, choking on his words. "Here. No, here. It's everywhere. It's burning, Dad. It's like I'm being pierced with a hot needle." Kathleen and Douglas were frightened seeing their son's condition. Adrian kept screaming out. It was on one arm, and then on the other, and then on his leg. They checked their son's body, but they didn't see anything unusual. He looked normal. Nonetheless, hearing their son's cries, they were concerned and tried to soothe him. "Do you think this is some sort of skin disease?" "I don't know, Douglas, but he's been screaming like this for the past 3 hours. Let's take him to the doctor." Kathleen and Douglas just barely managed to pull through the night, in anxiety themselves, seeing their son continuously scream in anguish. However, when the sun rose, Adrian seemed to calm down. But when the same thing happened again the next night, the family drove out to the doctors. "Mr. and Mrs. Leroy, I've examined your son, and I know this might be difficult on both of you after what you've seen. But this is only an act. Your son is suffering from a condition known as hysteria. It's a neurotic disorder. Patients show excessive or uncontrollable fear, violent emotional outbreaks, and disturbances of sensory and motor functions, which I've noticed in Adrian. Nevertheless, even if he may not be in pain for the reason he claims, he still is in a mental agony. Is there a cure to this? Time and rest is the only thing I can advise right now. Why don't you give it a few days and come back again for another checkup?" After speaking with the doctor, Kathleen and Douglas started to become skeptic of Adrian's cries. Adrian didn't experience anything odd during the day. It was only when night fell that he began screaming out in pain. The boy hadn't been sleeping for the past 2 nights, and neither were his parents. Is he doing this so he doesn't have to go to school? Did something happen? Why would he do that all of a sudden? He never did anything like this before. If he was a hysteria patient, we would have seen other symptoms. You can't go from sane to insane in one night. But when another 2 nights had gone by like this, the parents started to worry. The doctor refused to acknowledge anything Adrian was complaining about. Instead, he prescribed him sleep-inducing medications. The parents were shattered seeing their son, their boy, that was healthy just yesterday, now suffer like this. Sweetheart, eat something and take some rest. I'll be here for Adrian. I can't eat or sleep with him suffering like this. Don't be stubborn, Kathleen. How many days are you going to stay awake like this? You'll fall sick. He was absolutely fine, Douglas. My son was healthy. We had such a good time watching that eclipse together, and all of a suddenly the doorbell began to ring.
Mrs. Leroy, good morning. Adrian hasn't been coming to school for the past 4 days now. I heard that he was unwell. Is everything okay?
Yes, Mrs. Meridew. Adrian has fallen sick. Kathleen invited Adrian's teacher inside, telling her what had happened in the past week. We gave him the sleep medications his doctor prescribed, but it failed to work. Adrian woke up last night screaming in pain just like every other night. It's been difficult. Mrs. Meridew was silent for some time before she finally spoke out.
I don't know if you will believe me or not, but something like this happened to someone close to me. This is actually why I came to visit you. When I heard about Adrian, I thought he too was suffering from the same cause. I was afraid what Adrian is experiencing are all signs of black magic.
Black magic? Yes, and if it's so, the doctors will not be able to detect anything.
That's what they always tell the parents, but it wasn't a mental condition.
Your child might truly be suffering. And considering the recent lunar eclipse, it's a time when people are vulnerable to unusual elements like this. No, it can't be. Are you sure it can be something like black magic? Mrs. Leroy, I don't know what to say. It's better safe than sorry. Would you happen to know of anything that happened recently, anywhere Adrian must have went or have done? Perhaps you should look into the matter and see if anything unusual happened in these recent days. After speaking to Mrs. Meridew, Kathleen started to become doubtful whether there could be any truth to what she said. Was Adrian a victim of black magic? She started to consider, what if he was truly in pain, and she was ignoring his cries for help? So later that afternoon, Kathleen decided to go to Adrian's school after dismissal. Perhaps his friends would know something. Had Adrian involved himself in something? Youngsters tried out all kinds of things these days. But most of his friends were too fearful to speak up, assuming they were in trouble, which made Kathleen all the more suspicious. It wasn't until a young girl named Lucy spoke up that Kathleen was able to get some insight to what happened. Mrs. Leroy, it was actually a few days before the lunar eclipse. Adrian and a few friends, including me, were returning home when we stopped by this house a few blocks down from your home. The house was mostly covered by tall trees and it seemed to be quite old and broken down. We thought it was abandoned. This is one creepy house. You guys want to check it out? You think it's haunted? I've always wanted to see a ghost. Of course you do. You two are like those stupid horror movie characters. And we all know what happens to them in the end. Oh please, that's why it's a movie. If the characters are smart enough to get out of there, there would be no movie. Well, you got a point there. Come on, Lucy. We're just gonna peek a glance, and if we feel anything strange or supernatural, we'll leave. Adrian creaked open the gate and started walking towards the house as his friends followed. That's when the door to the house suddenly opened up. Adrian's friends freaked out and jumped over the gate, laughing as Adrian looked up to see a woman staring at him. So someone did live here? The woman had dark hair. She was wearing strange jewelry and clothes that seemed to look like she tailored them herself. "We're out of here, Adrian. Peace." His friends laughed and teased, leaving him there to get into trouble. "Thanks, friends." Adrian waved at the woman. "I'm sorry, we didn't think anyone lived here. I'll go now." But just when he turned, the woman called out to him. "Come here, young man." Adrian reluctantly approached her. The woman smiled and suddenly offered him an apple. "Take this. Enjoy it as a treat from me." Adrian looked at the strange woman. That's all right, miss. I should get going." No, you must. You've come to my home. You're my guest. You must eat before you go." The woman picked up the apple and raised it up to Adrian's face, ushering him to take it. As if he wasn't creeped out already, Adrian took a step back, refusing her once again. "I'm sorry, miss. I don't want to eat anything." However, the woman only took another step towards him and placed the apple in his palm, holding onto his hands. "Not even for me? It would make me happy if you accept my gift. Please eat the apple." Adrian pulled his hands away, furrowing his brows. "Please, don't touch me. I said I don't want your apple. I'm leaving," he said, freaked out. But just as he was going to turn, the woman suddenly became quite angry. "You can't leave without eating this." Adrian was thundered. What was this woman doing? She put the apple in front of his mouth and urged him to bite. "You must eat the apple." Adrian was the last of us to get out of there. He looked quite frightened when he reached us. He didn't want to talk about what happened and went straight home after that. We were a little nervous about what happened ourselves. We thought the woman might complain about us and get us into trouble. We later learned that she lives there all on her own. She doesn't really come out much. No one knows her that well, but we found out her name is Ursula Bohm. Kathleen suddenly got a strange feeling that something more had happened that day. Had her son fallen prey to this strange woman? Could it be possible that she did black magic on him? Who was Ursula Bohm? And what did she want? Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting.